So I'm going to stand here to introduce the next one. Nick framed our first panel discussion exceedingly nicely and talked for a rather long time about the market of CPaaS, Communications Platform as a Service. But what is Communications Platform as a Service? Here at MEF, we like to educate the market, educate individuals. As we've seen, so many businesses are yet to switch on to even using basic messaging such as A2P SMS. Now, Communications Platform as a Service technically is allowing developers access to the communication solution so many of your companies here in this room and indeed online are providing. But actually, when we use the word CPaaS now, it means something far bigger and far wider. And this is actually the topic we're going to be discussing now. And joining me, Mariola, come on down. Joining me in person is Mariola Knapik from Tele2. If you could please take this seat. Thank you very much. And coming in online, I hope, because this is the first time, apart from Eishan, are going to be 4 people. Eishan hopefully will be joining us online. Can we see the online folks, please? This is the first time we're doing this. And here we go. Can you all hear me? You come off mute as well. Carlos, you can hear me?
I can hear you loud and clear.
Perfect. Alexandre and Alex. Perfect. So,
hi everyone.
Hello. So, joining us so far, hopefully we'll have Eishan coming online. Carlos from Mavenir, care to introduce yourself quickly, sir?
Yes, so I'm the Associate Vice President of Product Marketing in Mavenir for the Enterprise Solutions, and I'm greeting you from London because everybody's now wanting to go back to trade shows, and all of them are scheduled in the same week. So I could only join remotely this time.
I know, and it's not just this week either. The next few weeks are really chock-a-block. Carlos, what do Mavenir do?
Oh, Mavenir is a provider of solutions for communication service providers and channel partners. It has multiple business units. We provide everything from radio access to IMS core and all sorts of network applications. But I personally am part of the business unit that oversees the enterprise solutions. It's called Mavenir Enterprise Connect. Includes CPaaS, customer engagement, business messaging, unified communications, and contact center solutions.
Fantastic. Thank you very much. Next off, I'd like to go to Desh, who is the COO of Comviva in India. Hey, Desh, nice that you can join us.
Hi, James. Nice to talk to you again. And good morning, good afternoon, everyone out there in the conference. So my name is Desh, and I head the messaging business at Comviva. And again, Comviva has multiple verticals from fintech to BSS, analytics, and the business unit that I head is the cloud communications unit, and everything that a telco needs to fulfill its cloud communication needs, from core messaging, firewalling, monetization of A2P or CPaaS platforms. That's what we provide to telcos.
Fantastic. Thank you very much. Great to have you with us. We've got Alex Ciubuc from Moldova, and he's the CEO of Mold Telecom.
Hi, James. Hello, everybody. Very nice to see you today. Mold Telecom is the incumbent or the national provider in Moldova.
Fantastic. Thank you very much. And we have also Alexandre Cottereau, who is with Bouygues Telecom. Alexandre, introduce Bouygues Telecom, more specifically, the part you work for, because for me, that says it all.
Hi, everyone. Really nice to meet you. Sorry not to be there today. So I'm working at Bouygues Telecom. We're one of the main French MNOs in France. We're working basically on everything around business messaging, mobile identity, and I'm working specifically on RCS and SMS. So basically the topic today with the CPaaS.
Fantastic. And what I was actually looking for the answer from you is the value factory, because you've got a specific business division within Bouygues Telecom called the value factory. So messaging, specifically rich messaging, of which you're a major part of, is the key driver for that. So that tells you that there are definitely mobile operators out there, and we've seen from Nick's presentation as well, who understand the messaging opportunity and are embracing it. Now, first of all, we're also expecting, by the way, Eishan Gupta from TATA Communications over in India to be joining us. Hopefully, we'll have Eishan joining us a little later, but we will continue. Now, the first question I would like to ask, and it's nice because we have a mixture of mobile operators here and providers of solutions to these said operators, is start with Mariola here, who's sitting right next to me here in the room. How do you think mobile operators as a whole are going on embracing the opportunity that CPaaS provides? Say 1 is terrible, 10 is superb, everyone is doing it. Where do you think operators are from what you're seeing, Mariola, between 1 and 10?
Okay, I actually don't have the full picture of it. I would like to say that we started quite early, right? Because it was 2015 when we realized that it would be a good solution for us. There are other operators who are doing, I think French operators are quite in the front of the development. But I would say maybe 6, 7.
Okay, thank you. Sticking with the mobile operators, Alex, over to you, because there was a life before mobile operators for you. You have indeed worked in the world that so many of us in this room and online are part of. And what's your perspective, using your past knowledge and indeed what you've been seeing since you took over running Mol Telecom?
Well, in the CPaaS and the UCaaS worlds, I believe we've seen a tendency of enterprises trying to embed all sort of omni-channel solutions into their different apps in order to allow them to communicate through one single interface through so many different channels with all their customers.
So between 1 and 10, don't be shy. How are operators doing embracing this opportunity?
I guess it really depends on the region and on the operator, but I would say on an average, it's probably somewhere between 6 and 7.
Okay, not too bad. And sticking with the mobile operators, there's a theme here. Alexandre, Bouygues Telecom, from your perspective, because you've been to a number of industry events, you spoke with me at Mobile World Congress. So what have you been seeing going on around the world?
I won't be very original, but I would say around 7, between 6 and 7 as well. Sorry.
Okay. No, come on, mobile operators. Come on. With the originality, you can be. Carlos, over to you. So, Carlos, the screen has frozen. Are you still there on the voice? That's the answer. Let's move to Desh. Over to you. Come on. Oh, could we? Anything more than 6 or a 7 or less? Where are you?
I would say very few opcos on 7 and most opcos maybe around 5 or lower than that. And, we need to look at what is the kind of revenue that the true aggregators are making, right, in the CPaaS space versus what telcos are making. And, we would like to call them above 7 when, you have a comparable revenue to some of the aggregators who are making money on CPaaS.
Okay, thank you. Carlos, you're back. Nice to have you back with us. So what would you say between 1 and 10?
Between 1 and 10, I would also agree with my colleagues here. It's sometimes between 6 and a 7. It's mostly a problem not of the carriers not understanding where they need to be in CPaaS. It's most of them having conflicting priorities. And right now they're in too focused on deploying 5G and leaving the monetization of 5G for later, out of resource crunching. But in reality, the time to implement is now. Otherwise, if you leave room for the OTTs to get in here, you're going to get the same problem you have with messaging. When you try and act, it's going to be too late.
Okay, very, very good point. Mariola, let's start with you here in the room. You mentioned you started your journey in this world of A2P messaging back in 2015. What prompted you and the Tele2 group to think, actually, we need to be doing more with A2P messaging as a whole, before even thinking about going into CPaaS for your enterprise clients?
I think that the main thing was that Tele2 was always working with A2P, right? It was a very small business, but we had A2P business run by our colleague who was sitting in the audience for many, many years. And it was sort of the realization that we thought, okay, that could be something that we could offer wider. And we started to think, okay, is wholesale the only opportunity? And obviously, we said no. We need to also engage with the with the enterprises. And now the question was how to do that, right? Because of course there could be a development in-house, but we thought that it would be too complex, and of course it's not in the DNA of mobile operators, or anyway it wasn't in 2015, because we see now that many actually start to think differently about that. But at that time we thought, okay, we need to enable the enterprises. We need to be able to sell them directly. We have lots of business-to-business customers. And that actually prompted us to engage with the CPaaS. And we're very happy we have done that.
Okay, great, thank you. Alex, Telecom, you're the incumbent, CEO of the incumbent operator within Moldova. What's happening with you? Again, the market dynamics are so different. There was a question about India before. India's got 1.3 billion people. It's obviously going to be different from your market in Moldova. How are you approaching in Moldova the CPaaS opportunity?
That's a good question. So we are right now implementing a new CCaaS application, which we will be using primarily for our own needs.
Okay, sorry, just stop you there, because you mentioned this earlier, UCaaS, just for the audience and everyone watching, that's Unified Communications as a Service, and CCaaS, that's Contact Center as a Service. Yeah, sorry, thank you.
Mm-hmm. Indeed, yes. I mean, there's a thin line between UCaaS and CPaaS, and there's a broader line between these two and the CCaaS. But at the end of the day, they're all about omni-channel communications. And we are starting to use now a new CCaaS application in order to be able to communicate with all our customers through all the different channels of communications. Primarily, we're still using voice. That's still the #1 channel. The #2 is SMS. Then we are starting to use web chat, social media chat, email, still a lot of email, and integrating chatbots and a little bit of AI. So that's what's going on our side. But if we look at the enterprises, enterprises still communicate a lot via different tools. So they still use different tools for voice, for messaging, for SMS, A2P, for social media. So we don't see yet a big adoption of UCaaS solutions or CPaaS solutions on the enterprise side. And I guess it's our role, we have to play a role here to educate those enterprise customers and help them basically to easier use these UCaaS applications.
Okay, thank you. Over to you, Desh at Comviva. Comviva, you have deployments all around the world of your solutions within mobile networks. And when you're talking about the CPaaS opportunity to a network, how does the conversation for you typically go at the moment, Desh? Is there this understanding of what it is and the opportunity, or are you still finding you've got to do what was just talked about there by Alex, the education part?
So I think in the last 2 quarters, I've seen a lot more acceptance and curiosity to know more about how they can launch and enable CPaaS. But I think the education on understanding that it is not a typical deployment of any other network node, but it requires constant evolution and a different partnership model. And it cannot be that they can figure out all the RFP requirements and build it day one and launch it. It has to be worked out in a different model. And I think that part of the education is still underway. But there is a lot more demand, a lot more acceptance to say that something needs to be done than leaving it high and dry. I think that's what we are seeing recently.
Okay, Carlos, over to you. So education, sticking with this topic of education, Mavenir, I had the pleasure of working for a company now part of Mavenir for 10 years, from 1998 to 2008. And I actually looked after, for a bit, the training services. So I know how important education and training is. The same question to you, because you likewise have deployments across a couple of hundred operators around the world. What are you seeing personally as well from this perspective? Have you noticed this recent increase in awareness?
There is a recent increase in awareness. there's been a couple of analyst reports recently that are compelling the carriers and the MNOs to move beyond just plain messaging into a full CPaaS. And in terms of the education, it's important because a lot of the MNOs today have focused too much on like the messaging aspect of CPaaS and not the other channels, perhaps, and focusing way too much also on the benefit on how this can help enterprises to access their assets or their network assets, or to kind of embed those real-time communications into their processes. But there is also another aspect that the MNOs need to be educated on, and that is that a CPaaS solution is a great platform for them to foster fast innovation into the market. They can provide faster response to enterprises that come to them with a challenge, with a problem. Instead of having to rely on which vendor they can procure to build a custom solution, they can quickly set up a team of developers versed on web technologies and REST APIs who can quickly cook a production system on AWS or other public cloud and create a custom solution specifically for that customer, just using the APIs of their CPaaS platform. So there is a lot of activity we can do in there to try and evangelize on how they can achieve those both results. Help the enterprise on one side, but also help them differentiate from the other MNOs in their market.
Okay, that's a great point. Now, there are just as there are enterprises of all sizes, there are mobile network operators of all sizes. So the resources available to everyone are going to be different in all circumstances. Moving now to Bouygues Telecom, you're a rather large operator in France and a very, very strong market position and brand presence. Alexandre, how did Bouygues approach the CPaaS opportunity? Did you go the Carlos route, or did you develop it in-house, or what did you do?
So I would say that we started with using the different channels, like one not depending on the other. So it's basically different tools using like social networks on one side and SMS the other one, and then the emails, basically the historical offers and products. And I would say when the new business messaging came out, such as RCS and WhatsApp, the different marketing teams started to understand that you have to interconnect those different channels between each other so you don't lose what has been said to the customer on another one. And so we decided to work as the entire market, meaning that we're working with partners such as Sinch, for instance, that already have a lot of knowledge and experience on business messaging, but also on the general CPaaS experience. And so we're now open-minded on how to develop it in-house, but it hasn't started yet.
Okay, so the partnership for you with Sinch has been key to really accelerating that within operator.
Yeah, especially for the go-to-market.
Yeah, so it's the rapidity, the speed. Okay, thank you. Desh, back to you. When you're talking to mobile operators, I'm going to link this into you, Mariola, and you could talk about what the situation was at Tele2. What barriers to entry have you seen from mobile operators when you go and talk to them about CPaaS? What kind of pushback do you get from them?
So I think there are multiple pushbacks. One, a clear business case might not exist in most telcos, and the clear focus in terms of understanding the enterprises, their needs. I think that expertise is lacking sometimes. Third, from an enterprise itself, when they do the research, do they have 100% coverage? Are they able to offer to the entire country and beyond countries, and how will they compete? I think that motivation somewhere is lacking, is what I see in most cases. And when we are able to consult, show them case studies about how it is done, then we are able to move. But it takes time. It is not very clear in terms of the way telcos are used to selling connectivity as and a clear ROI. I think on CPaaS, it has an uphill task in terms of first building the platform, and then also on top of that, acquiring the enterprises. So it's not going to happen on day one. It is going to take time. And I think that selling internally has to be done by somebody who is really pioneering it and leading that discussion internal to the organization.
Perfect. That leads me perfectly into Mariola, Tele2. So what was the situation for you at Tele2, and how easy was it for you to convince other people within Tele2 that CPaaS, or indeed A2P messaging moving into CPaaS and omnichannel ultimately, is worth the investment and time?
I think that it was actually, I have to say that it went pretty fast if I compare to other companies within the same sector. But of course, it had to be a lot of convincing. and it is not, once again, a primary core business for telco, right? So, and especially it wasn't in 2015. So at that point, we needed to productify enterprise model and enterprise product to sell it. So this was also the whole process, right, to do that. But what I would like to mention, and what I feel that could be an issue, and definitely it was also discussed at that time, because we telco, we are very much used to SIP connectivity, SMPP connectivity, but not API. And I think that was one thing that maybe telco, needs some convincing.
So was it convincing because of it's a different technology,
yes.
or is it a trust element?
No, I think it's a different technology. You know, we
Simple
have
as
not
that.
done it. I think that we always were connecting to our network, and we maybe didn't realize that we can connect this API platform through our network, and both of them can have better leverage, right? But one thing that we see today is that regulation could be an issue with the cloud, with the public cloud, especially the Schrems law. And in Sweden, they are working on the new regulation.
Sorry, the Schrems?
Schrems law
Okay.
that is implemented in the EU. So
Okay.
there's the privacy. So that could have some impact on the cloudification in the public clouds. So that is one thing. And also different prices from different MNOs on the market make the offering to enterprises very difficult.
Well, we're going to come to that. That is actually the last panel of the whole event tomorrow, which I will be moderating. So much comes down to the commercial model. We started off in the keynote delivered by Igor from Lank Telecom, more than touching on that subject, and we will no doubt be hearing about that. So we'll come back to that.
Yeah.
We've got more, there's more time. Alex, back to you in Moldova and Mold Telecom. For you in the business, you're leading the business. You've had the luxury, I suppose, of being actively, directly involved in this messaging business. CPaaS, you know what UCaaS is, you know what contact centers are services, you know all of that. But many of your compatriots sitting in the hot seat running mobile network operators have not had that. What would you say, what's your personal message to CEOs around the world, where we've heard from Nick Lane in the analyst presentation that he showed quite clearly a selection of mobile operator groups ranging from a mobile operator group with 2.51% of their total revenue down to another with just 0.25% of the revenue. What would you say to mobile network operators, CEOs, why they should embrace the opportunity? Because it's clearly not just from the revenue.
Well, I would definitely tell them that it's about time to embrace CPaaS as part of our MNOs offering, because indeed, like someone mentioned, telcos are still very much focused on their traditional services, and we need to start bringing something that brings some value add to the enterprises. We know that the new customers, the young customers, they are looking at being contacted through all those social media apps and web chat and new channels of communication. So MNOs need to be able to offer UCaaS offerings, and UCaaS offerings can be only built based on CPaaS solutions. So definitely time to embrace it and start educating enterprise customers how to use it efficiently.
Fantastic. Carlos from Mavenir. So within the infrastructure world, Mavenir, the likes of Comviva with us today, have very, very strong brand presence within the telecommunications community. Both of your companies are well known across most mobile network operators globally. But why is it that when it comes to mobile network operators whose brand presence practically is unequaled, you take the average person on the street here in the Netherlands, or whether it be in the UK where you are now, Carlos, everyone, from a child to the oldest person practically in the country will have heard of at least one of the mobile network operators. Why is it, from your perspective, that the mobile network operators have not really leveraged that brand opportunity they have to really move into business messaging? Because that's I suppose,
Well,
a big opportunity, a huge opportunity, and you've got this massive install base ready and waiting to go.
Yeah, and I think it's a combination of several factors. One of them being, what Nick mentioned in the analyst presentation is that the revenue for business messaging at the moment is a fraction. It's basically a marginal part of their global revenue. So, people who are following, the Six Sigma School of Leadership, trying to focus on the few things that generate the 80% of the revenue. And right now, business messaging is not there. So that's one point. But the thing is, and if you follow what Mobile Square's been doing over the last few years, analyzing the market, once the growth starts to hit, then revenue numbers start to grow much faster. But not only that, I mean, the other problem in here is that having their own CPaaS, having their own business messaging, having their own value add presence on top of the let's say connectivity itself is what's going to allow them to remain relevant as a brand. And you can look at the example today, for example, other markets that have become commoditized. You don't choose your electricity provider if you can choose in your region which one you choose because of their brand reputation. You choose them basically as long as the electricity is stable and you don't get any blackouts. You go for the cheaper one. That's not what the carriers want to go. They don't want to go in a race to the bottom to see who can provide cheaper connectivity and cheaper price per message. They want to go to a place where they can offer value add, differentiation, innovation, and to be able to respond fast to the needs of their consumers and the needs of their enterprise customers. And CPaaS is a good way to achieve that, again, because they have the building blocks to create their own unique offers and unique combinations and bundling of services. But again, it goes back to what I've been saying in RCS for a long, long time. It starts with education, not only educating the MNOs themselves, but also to generate the demand, to educate the companies, the enterprises. Because the problem in that space, why the business case still hasn't worked, is because you cannot make a company demand something they don't know they need. And at the moment, a lot of them, they don't know
Exactly.
they need CPaaS.
You don't know.
They haven't seen how it changes when you can have this integrated customer experience where your CRM automatically calls your customers when you get an incoming conversation on your contact center and it pops on your Salesforce or your HubSpot and you see your whole customer history. And when you want to reconnect with them, all of the previous conversations pop up and you get this unified experience that lets you answer your customer by saying, "Hello, Mr. Williams. I saw you had a problem last week. Is that resolved or is it still bothering you?" Instead of having to ask, "Hello, how can I help you today? Can you explain your problem 1,000 times every time you switch operators?" So that's an exercise we all as an industry need to do.
Yep, and we're going to be looking at that. Just happens to be another panel I will be moderating tomorrow, looking at exactly that. Now, Alexandre, you from Bouygues Telecom, you've got that fabulous brand. How are you going about essentially pushing out that brand, associating business messaging with your brand? Because there's so many businesses out there which aren't just major enterprises, they're small and medium-sized businesses. And I'm well aware that some of the largest business messaging companies, so if you want to call them aggregators, CPaaS providers, whatever you want to frame them as, actually were very small, but happened to be in the right place at the right time and happened to have a couple of brands who themselves grew so rapidly, the business messaging grew. So how are you going out there essentially acquiring customers in France for your messaging solutions?
First, I wanted to say I completely agree with Carlos with the fact that you have to raise the importance of business messaging inside your company to start making money, and after you're going to generate acquisition and stuff like that. And basically today we're still focused a lot on the historical channels such as emailing and calling the people, and call centers are really key for Bouygues Telecom. And slowly we're developing chatbots and trying to modernize how we engage with new customers and prospects. And this is why we start using RCS, WhatsApp, and Instagram a lot. We're basically, as you said, it's really hard because the telcos are really taking a lot of attention on the TV ads and stuff like that. And people know who are the competitors and they're going for the cheaper. And so we really need to focus on specific channels and specific strategies and not going everywhere at the same time. And this is, I think, the hardest stuff in this job is to choose the right channel at the right moment and then make sure we keep the history of of the conversation to say.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point about the channel, because the one thing I learned from our panel at Mobile World Congress was we actually had a startup from Spain with us on the panel. And in my head, I'd always thought that you start off with SMS and then you move up to rich messaging, whatever that looks like, whether it's WhatsApp, Business Messenger, or any other channel. But what's becoming clear is that company was GoMeep. They went straight into messaging, straight into WhatsApp, and they're actually, in their history, which is fairly short, I think about a year, they've only ever had one customer who didn't have WhatsApp in the Barcelona region. So you don't have to start off with SMS, you can go straight into rich messaging. And I have to admit, I hadn't quite understood that. So Desh, going back to you, Comviva, we've talked about Comviva, we've talked about your global presence with platforms across so many different mobile operators. We've talked about the education side of things. How is it for you as a platform provider to educate your customers, essentially, let's say the mobile network operators, on this opportunity? Because if they're an existing customer, so I'm talking about mobile operators here, their interest is in the person-to-person side of things. And we've got mobile operators, 3 of them here on this panel, and I think if they said how many people are actually working in the world of A2P for them in their company, they may have thousands of employees, but how many people are actually working in A2P? It doesn't matter how big you are, I could probably count the number of employees on these 2 hands. So how do you go about doing that without the mobile operator thinking, oh, it's Desh again, he's trying to sell me something? Because it's not just about the revenues, there's a real opportunity here for about giving operators a tool to use on enterprises to cement that relationship and brand presence.
Absolutely, James. So I think it is not just about short-term revenue opportunity, but it is the presence of telcos going to become a digital technology provider in their respective countries. Their brand presence is already known, but you can't do anything with the brand unless you have the offerings. And where do you start? I think CPaaS provides a great starting point for the telcos to become digital technology providers in their respective markets. And on top of like what Carlos was mentioning, once you have the, because your claim to becoming a digital technology provider as a CPaaS provider is a good starting point, but then you need to build applications on top, help how the enterprises, small and medium businesses can leverage those APIs to actually deliver meaningful value-based applications for their business. So that journey, when I'm having a conversation, can only happen when I'm able to show them proof saying, okay, this is what we have seen, where the operator was hesitant to start with, but there are multiple operators who have thousands of enterprises on our platforms enabled today on those CPaaS platforms, right? And that has happened because the operator did not just, embrace the platform, but also did what a OTT or a aggregator is doing in the market in terms of educational events, hackathons, etc. If you do all of them along with the platform, then there is a real opportunity. And that is what, we show as case studies to our customers to say what they could also achieve.
Fantastic. So it's that stickiness as well, because with enterprises, mobile operators may be offering, for example, internet connectivity to those enterprises, but if you're offering them something more, business messaging, it adds that stickiness to the relationship, and it, I think, turns it away from just purely being a commodity. Alex, going back to you at Mall Telecom, I asked you that question, how would you, coming from the business messaging business before, into the world of MNOs, approach talking to your fellow CEOs across the world who are MNOs, but how would you recommend MNOs actually practically go about getting on board with CPaaS? What strategy would you advise they take on? Should they do it themselves purely? Should they take in external advice and do it themselves? Or should they just go with a partner, for example, like Bouygues Telecom and Alexandre mentioned being Cinch at this point? What would you say?
Well, MNOs definitely lack CPaaS expertise. So the easiest way would be to go with a partner or with a CPaaS enabler. I mean, either way, depending on how the MNOs are willing to approach this. But definitely going with one of those 2 types of partners in order to be quicker to the market and in order to provide a solution which is already working well. And I would start with simple things such as adding SMS A2P or enterprise messaging to MNOs offering, and then adding new channels like social media, apps, web chat, email, and so on. So building it gradually, proving value add to the customers, and then adding new channels.
Fantastic. So, but don't be shy of using a partner, a good established brand in business messaging out there. So already. My final question, very quickly, we've just got 3 minutes left, and I'll just keep a minute aside for questions. But it's a weird one, this one, because you've got competitive pressures. Your mobile operator, you've got the business messaging companies who have been in the space, some of them for 20 years. The first defined one was actually 1998 in A2P in the UK, back then. So they've been around 20 plus years. A mobile network operator's coming into it new, but you want that revenue for yourself. You want to take some of that business back to you within the mobile operator. How do you manage those competitive pressures, Mariola? Because a bit of an issue there. You've got to work with them, but you also want more revenue yourself.
I think that this whole new business, like with RCS, with CPaaS, actually it is bringing us very close together right now. Before we were competitors, but right now we are all part of the same food chain. So we need to compete, but we need to also cooperate with each other and actually share the profits. And I think it is not only for aggregators, operators, but also for the CPaaS providers, right? And I think that that's how this whole business needs to develop. And by this, we are going to provide, for example, the stronghold of operators now will be 5G networks. We will provide very good connectivity. There will be new services that will be enabled on those CPaaS platforms.
I think 5G is going to be great for that.
Yes, exactly.
All enterprise connectivity that 5G offers.
The gaming, like rich media, any type of that. So I think that actually it is all about cooperation.
Great.
And choosing the opportunities for different part of this food chain.
Fantastic. Okay, have we got any questions in the room at all? No questions. Have we got any questions online? Ross?
Yes, one online. So one of the questions was, does it matter to an enterprise consuming CPaaS services from an MNO or standalone CPaaS operator, and then building on top of that, what value proposition can an MNO provide to enterprises?
Okay, Alexandre, would you like to go with that? So the first part, Ross, could you just repeat?
Yeah.
Yep.
Sure. I mean, the MNOs have...
that was the wrong Alex, but it doesn't matter.
Oh, sorry.
Started rolling,
you
can go with that. We'll go to the Alexandre after. Yeah. Go for it, Alex. Go for it.
Right. So basically, the MNOs have the local touch in the country where they provide the services, and they have a history and proximity with their customers. So naturally, it's easier for an MNO to sell to one of his existing customers a CPaaS offering than for Sinch or MessageBird to sell in Moldova, right? So it's all about customer proximity. So I would say that's the value add that we can provide. There is history, there is trust, there is established trust, there is already invoicing in place. So yeah, that's the value add that an MNO can provide.
Thank you. Alexandre, over to you, or has Alex stolen it?
I would add that we have a lot of contact with our customers, and we're among the main companies of the country, and we have like maybe 10 or 20 million customers depending on the country. And so every time we have a contact with the customer, we understand better how they expect us to interact with them. And for instance, we know that they want to have maybe a fallback with the call center, so they are able to fix the issue like really quickly and on phone. And so we can say to the other company that and give them advice like do this or don't do this.
Okay, Alexandre, thank you very much. So we've gone over.
James, I have a
William. Oh, sorry,
I have a counter to that view.
Oh, go on.
Yeah. So I think the enterprises look at telcos to be very slow and would not want to partner, I mean, as a natural choice compared to somebody like a private aggregator. And that is one of the challenge or perception that the telcos have today in the mind of enterprises who want to go fast, want connectivity in hours. right? And I think that is something which the telcos have to factor in terms of right people, consulting, use cases, ready-made on day one. People who launch platforms without considering that struggle a lot, and that is one of the just to counter what the Alex said.
No, it's exactly. So by partnering, you can bring. I know, Carlos, you want to come in, but we are way over, so I need to stop. No. There will be plenty more time. I know, poor Carlos, but we'll have him back on a future panel. Fear not, sir. Fear not. But I'd just like to stop this now because it's break time for everyone here who is in the room. It's very, very important. We're going to have it was a 20-minute break. We'll make it 16, 17-minute break. For those of you online, we're going to reconvene at 11:40 Amsterdam time. But just to thank the panel here, you've heard cooperation is key. There's a massive opportunity in this world of business messaging, and that can only be unlocked through cooperation. Talking about which, we had the CEO of Mol Telecom, Alex Ciubuc. Thank you very much for joining us. Product Manager with Value Factory, Bouygues Telecom, Alexandre Cottereau. AVP from enterprise side of things with Mavenir, Carlos Aragon, and the CEO of Comviva, Desh. Thank you very much for joining us. We needed another 30 minutes. We don't have them. It's break time. Off we go and enjoy and join us in another 15 to 20 minutes. Thank you all.